You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.
All right, boys and girls, we are here. We are alive. We have figured out how to turn the sound on, and hopefully,
the sound was on.
Hopefully, Boat has found pictures of his.
I have
roses. Okay, so I'm going to do some shout-outs here. We're going to explain what we're doing here while the gardening hour is taking place. Sorry, we didn't have the sound on earlier. It was literally because of gardening talk, which is not...
Yeah, we were talking about rose bushes. It was great.
Yes. Novation Games, thank you very much. Captain Chaos 27, thank you very much. Diesel 1975, hi to you. Fist Ice, totally not Ice Fist. Doot. Holy fuck, 15 months.
There you go. So there's the one picture, and then here's the other one. So I got three of the 4 rose bushes are growing. You can see that one that's just being an asshole, and he's not growing. So I'm like, yeah, we're getting rid of him. We're gonna put a purple rose in. So, and then I got 2 pepper plants.
Exactly what I expected to be talking about on the Meta Show, but at the same time, novelty is the spice of life. I mean now I know that Boat has a rose habit. He's a cosmopolitan.
Yeah, you have to have something to do, and my father, we were at my family reunion last month, and he's like, look, find something to do. And I've always wanted to try gardening. I always thought I had a brown thumb, and then I did some gardening over here on this little like part of my house, and yeah. I actually have 4 peppers growing pretty nicely too. I'm pretty excited for that. I love bell peppers, so yeah. Never thought that'd be possible, but
I was just worried you were gonna go blind. I'm in your room all day.
But yeah, we're gonna have a great show for you. We have a lot to talk about. A wonderful podcast, and I say wonderful because it was a nice hot mess of information. There were between CCP and Talking Stations was leaked about 4 days early. It wasn't supposed to come out till tomorrow on their normal time, but somebody leaked it. CCP confirmed it was leaked, and then confirmed it existed and it was true and real, and yeah, here we are. And we also have some great guests. We have Elo Knight here from Fraternity. Headliners here from wherever Headliners from. I think PL. Yeah, PL. Jay's here. Jay's here. And then Iwanto's here. Iwanto's in Snuff, I think.
I'm in PL.
Everybody's in PL now, actually. We all blued each other, and we're all just part of the family.
Yeah.
I think I'm kidding. I can't tell anymore. Up is down, left is right. There's a blue donut, and Boat likes roses. Who the fuck knows what's happening?
Hey, I mean, everybody's gonna have an outdoor hobby to do something, right? Like,
I mean, hey man, I've been using snake plants for air purification. Yeah. I like gardening, I guess, too. All right, let's talk about fucking
spaceships. Yeah.
I guess really one of us, not me, because I want to be lazy, and not Boat, because he just introduced the concept. Would one of our guests like to give their impression of what they thought of the Talking in Stations interview with Hilmar and Falcon? Anyone have a particular hot take on it, or want to give us a summary on their view of what happened? Because there might be some of our audience that are unaware of the podcast.
I think this is the part where we all reluctantly
also in silence and wait for someone to talk.
That we haven't listened or read.
I listened to like the first half hour in the background, and I got bored and wandered off, and then I got a summary from somebody else because for the life of me, like sitting around and like listening to. Yeah, no, I'm glad that people do it. We've been very busy with like other shit in nullsec and various other slap fights and other fun, like creating weird trade networks and shit. So it's been busy behind the scenes of the metagame, and yeah, I listened to like the first half hour of it. Did any of you guys actually listen to the whole thing? Usually the kind of people that end up on the Meta Show don't listen to the entirety of any given podcast, but you never know.
I listened to part of it. It was... they talk a lot and do very little things, I think, compared to...
It's funny because it's true.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
didn't they say they're going to iterate on so many things like at Eve Down Under, which was like 3 months ago, and since then all they've done is like just piss everybody off.
Yeah.
Iterating, I guess.
I mean, one of the things to keep in mind, guys, is for all of the focus that's on CCP, one of the things that struck me as sort of unusual about the reactions to this podcast, I think it got sort of a bit of excitement and hype around it because it was like leaked, and so it had this sort of illicit, like, ooh, we're going to listen to Hilmar and Falcon, but you know, Hilmar and Falcon talk about what their views are about EVE Online pretty much all the fucking time in a variety of media. So, you know, keep in mind, guys, like the sun's up in Iceland. The sun only comes up for like half the year. For real, they're in like high summer. The sun, like you can party until 6 in the fucking morning, and then you go outside after a night of clubbing, and it's bright as day. So there's no off switch. Like it's kind of like manic depressive or bipolar or whatever. So at the same time, the vast majority of the CCP staff is probably gone because in late July and August, a lot of them, they just all go on vacation. So essentially, like, as a preface for the podcasty stuff, like you can talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but I don't think that there can be really new development hitting the ground until after the vacation season.
If they can club that much, we should start a balance club in Iceland.
Yeah, they.
All the problems.
I don't even know what a balance club is.
So is that the takeaway from this that CCP loves to club?
They used to, but all the people that loved to club went to Riot. So, you know, that old generation of the party crew in Iceland, unfortunately, has been long gone.
Well, if you listen to the interview, it sounds like they got the top 100 things that got upvoted a lot on Reddit, and they're just prepared to answer those positively. And it's like they ask something about this, and they go, "Oh yeah, we're gonna fix that. No, we're gonna make that better. No, we're gonna do that," which is like. They always do that whenever they do some sort of interview, especially like this. They always just come in ready to say yes to everything and make a big hype about something.
Yeah. It felt like, and maybe you guys could comment on this and we'll bring some focus to it. It felt like they were pandering to the Reddit crowd with this whole podcast. Every little talking point that Reddit's wanted for the last 6 months, they covered in some way that made all the people on Reddit that scream in joy, right? And that's the reaction I got from the whole thing.
I mean,
what do you guys think?
The sun is pretty bright, and the sky is also blue. I don't think another thing about it is like I don't think that we necessarily need to think that like it's like company policy or something. Like Falcon is the community manager. His job essentially is, and he posts a lot on Reddit. And CCP as a company appears to have made a decision, which I think is a bad one because of the example of what happened with like Sony Online Entertainment and various other companies, where you want to control your feedback. Like the guys in Warframe, they have their own forums. EVE Online, surprisingly enough, has its own forums, but after they did the revamp on them, people barely use them anymore. And also the developer focus seems to be on this Reddit shit show, which is something that can be easily manipulated by teams of people brigading, and you don't know whether they're paying customers or not. I mean, I always shit on our EVE, like me saying Reddit is dumb and people should not listen to Reddit, and that upvotes don't win wars is the same shit I've been saying for like 8-9 years now, however long since Reddit has been around. But yeah, I mean, I do think that Falcon and Hilmar play to the crowd of Reddit. I think that they are taking a victory lap. I think that they honestly believe that the blackout thing has been very good for EVE's player numbers in the last month. That's what they said on the podcast. Or at least, I don't know if they said it was because of the blackout.
I got the quote here for you. So I took notes, and we took lots of notes, and Antonio took notes, and I took notes on his notes. So here we go. Hilmar says right away, we're actually experiencing right now in the month of July, the MAUs and the DAUs are the highest they've been in the last 5 years.
What's the DC?
So DAU is daily active users, and so the DAU is daily active and MAU is monthly.
Jesus Christ,
the BCU.
Yeah, Legend asked the question, please.
Getting these new stats, the MAU, the DAU. Sounds like they're trying to like disguise some of these numbers, I think.
That is an interesting point because we do normally talk in terms of PCU. MAU, so like things like ARPU, and we have Carneris in chat, and Carneris has been a games industry professional in most of his life. And so like there are all these like business acronyms that come from like marketing and like bottom line things like DAU, MAU, things like ARPU, average revenue per user, shit like that. Like, I don't know if they're talking about DAU or MAU, if that's like a business metric, if that's if they just don't use PCU internally. I don't even know if CCP uses CPU internally. Maybe they use DAU, MAU. Maybe Carneros can say something. I don't fucking know. But it is weird because we normally talk about PCU, not MAU, DAU.
We talk about it on this show as PCU. Someone says corporate BS. The quote here says DAU is daily active users, MAU is monthly active users. But the question I have about active users, and this is a question that was presented to me, or that was brought up in a forum of a bunch of people. It says they use and watch the PCU and CCU intensely, but those aren't up right now. So they're the ones that they really do use. I think CCU is concurrent users online, right? Like that's how many people are constantly online. So, I mean, it sounds like they're just looking at like, hey, this guy logged in for a few seconds and then logged out, and these are the number of people that have been doing that compared to the rest of it.
They did a bunch of promotions too,
okay,
right? Like,
yeah.
promotions too, right? At the same time.
Well, yeah.
Elo, what was talk about that a little bit?
Go ahead, Elo. Sorry.
They like offering people like skill points just to log in and multiple deals, and I got like 16 emails from them offering me different things if I resubbed one of my accounts. Like
that's an interesting thing, because like that's I think the biggest challenge that we have for people who are not like brigading things on Reddit one way or the other. The biggest challenge about parsing the sort of medium to long term impact of Blackout and whether Blackout has been a success or not a success has been the data has been messed up by the daily login promotions and the marketing promotions they're doing. And I want to make this very clear. Like, I think that EVE needs to modernize. Like, it is 2019. A lot of other online games have like figured out what kind of like the best practices for getting people to log on and play are. And I think that things like login rewards or like little promotional gimmicks to get people to play are perfectly reasonable. Like, some people might disagree with that. Maybe they don't like them, but I personally, not speaking for Gunstorm or anything, just like, I think that they're a good thing. They work. I have no problem with CCP doing skill point giveaways and login promotions. But unfortunately, it does mess with the data about the Blackout.
Especially when they're using like this new type of data, right? Like, it might not affect the PCU because like people logging in 5 minutes and logging out, but like you're tracking the peak number of players that are logging in every day. And obviously, it's gonna get fucking skewed, isn't it?
Because an active user, a monthly or daily active user, would count as active even if it wasn't part of like the peak concurrency. If they just logged in and cashed in a skill point reward and then immediately logged off, they would still count as an active user for that day, right?
That's
so DAU and MAU are like even less instructive than PCU, because PCU at least shows you how many humans are online at once, but DAU and MAU only show you the number of people that logged in over the course of a day, and it doesn't say anything about how long they were logged in or whether they were all active at the same time. If you have a bigger PCU, you have more people doing things in space in theory, so there's more stuff happening in the sandbox.
But here's what I did. Like with the daily login rewards, you didn't even have to log into a character. You only had to log on the account. So how does their data justify like actual characters online? Because the metric you see for EVE Offline is how many characters are online and in space or docked or wherever they are, but they're actually physically online. There could be 3 characters on one account. So the question is then, with a lot of these rewards, I waited a week, right?
But it'll be instances of the EXE being
and then
launched on that day. Right?
Yeah, so Falcon says here, and to answer your question, Jay, Falcon does that. And he goes, the MER for July and August will look very bizarre due to Blackout. Even if you filter out the login campaign from the data login, meaning the skill points and all that stuff they've been doing, he goes, it's incredible to see the activity here. The ish generated by bounties is down massively, but that player activity is still there. It just shifted to other activities as players have adapted. We believe the Blackout is an enormous success.
I don't know people watch this. Like K. Carla and like some G-Sol dudes have been watching it. Like they've been taking readings at like different time zones throughout the day and the week. Yeah, like of the people like logged into like the game, and it's down overall. And then they come out and say, "Oh, but the MAU is the highest it's ever been in 4 years." So fuck off, dude.
I think there's a more fundamental problem with stuff like this, right? You know, so they're tossing out a few different changes, flicking some switches back at HQ, putting some things into the game with short notice in the hope that it's going to create some ripple in the pond. and then diving straight into like picking their way through all of these janky metrics, which are easily skewed when you start doing things out of the ordinary, which will provoke people to sort of maybe log in once or twice to have a look, and then you on top of that throw some promotions in and stuff. But I think like that's the problem with all of this stuff. It's you know, they've kind of gone too far down the rabbit hole and started to, you know, found different rabbit holes, and now they're so kind of lost in the whole thing. It's like, can anyone make sense of whether this is good, bad, or not? And I've been reading through these Suetonian notes while you guys have been talking, and the same old things keep coming out, right? It's like, oh, the 1%, they're too rich. It's too easy to make ISK. There's, you know, Plex prices are high and the value of ISK is falling because, you know, ISK faucets, this, that, and the other. The map needs to be shaken up. It's like, okay, fine. Maybe all of those things are true. And like, if they're starting to do things to try and shake that big picture up, they, rather than looking at these metrics, is anyone at CCP actually down in the game, logging in, mixing it with the players, going and having a look at what the players are doing, like actually watching them rather than watching metrics? Are they actually watching what's going on in the game? Because for me, that's the logical starting point, right?
I mean, one of the things that's like strange from a nullsec leadership perspective, or just any, like, it doesn't even have to be nullsec leadership. An organization as large as Snuff would count as this. Any sort of group that has, let's say, between 1,500, 2,000 characters or up. You know, we all have been like trying to figure out what the statistics, the things we can see, things like PCU, and measuring it against past PCUs, and also listening to our line and seeing what people are saying and what their sort of like anecdotal experience, which is hard to quantify. How does that line up with what we're seeing from CCP? Because in the case of Olados, like, I was publicly in favor of the blackout, and I have been in favor of the blackout because I want them to do like recon structures and shit like that down the line. But it's kind of a real challenge because you can't really get good information from Reddit because it's Reddit. When you have somebody like Suetonia or Kunmi talking about their views on things, they're subject matter experts, and that's a thing. But part of the blackout is almost like with the login promotions, it's as if we ourselves are blind to finding out what's actually happening in the blackout itself. Like, I don't think we really have a good idea about whether it's been a success or a failure or a good thing or a bad thing, because there's just so much squid ink everywhere that it's kind of hard to get like a firm stance on something when you don't know the ground truth.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? And that's the case. I think I broadly agree with you there. But my question would be to you guys, to anyone watching, or to them themselves, how aware of that are they? Are they looking around and seeing, or are they just sitting 20,000 feet above the game, picking these metrics out and saying, well, okay, this one's up, so clearly we should flick this switch, and that will bring that one up. You know, what's actually going on there? I'd rather they spoke to that, you know, than talking about some of these things that I'm reading.
A lot of people that are commenting on this are saying it's like Hilmar is viewing this like he's in a wormhole, right? Like the blackout thing, the way he's treating everything is like he's playing in the wormhole, but the wormhole gameplay is so dynamically different. Here's one that scares me. Normally I don't get scared by changes in EVE because you just kind of, it doesn't really affect me personally. It tends to affect the masses. But this one little bit scared me. And it's the change in how CCP is approaching the overall of the game. It usually is viewed as a sandbox. If I want to go fight PL and we fight in a war against each other, that's the conflict, right? We're the conflict drivers. We're fighting each other. But Falcon and Hilmar both made these points where they wanted, Hilmar goes, there's going to be a lot of different things coming in the next weeks to destabilize the system further. So people will constantly have new things to deal with. And then Falcon replies with, the map needs a shake-up. We need to create conflicts. People have built their sandcastles. Now they need to fight for them. And this speaks as to, like, why are players going to be the ones who decide how they fight? Let's do it for you.
When they try to create content with the truth.
That's what I mean. This is how it feels like CCP's trying to force something onto the 0-0 player base, and ignoring the fact that we were busy at a war and they had all their conflict right there. They just had to look at it. That speaks back to what Headliner just said. Are CCP even looking at what's going on?
Well, I think to a certain extent, the player base, us as the player base, we're kind of guilty of pushing them away from wanting to get involved like that, because we've been talking about things like generations of players now who didn't play the game when the T20 thing happened, right, have been told this story about how CCP did something bad and it altered the course of the game for a certain number of people and it pissed off X people.
Where's my Saber BPO?
Exactly
is what
right.
I think.
It's been passed down though, but through generations of players. And
where's my fucking Saber BPO?
And that, like, people believe that, you know, we should just leave that behind, right? And then try and reset with them and invite them back into the game. I've said this so many times, right? Because if you step back from all of this stuff that's going on right now, do you remember when Citadels first came and you had void bot, like the void stand-up void bombs, and there was like 2 doctrines that could go and reinforce the Citadel properly? You know, was anyone from CCP, for example, hanging out, even watching, not playing within a nullsec group or anything like that, to see how ridiculous it was to go out and reinforce a bunch of Citadels that were vulnerable for 4 hours a week, that you could only use Macarials or Maelstroms for? And we went on like that for months and months and months, and everyone complained about it, and it was on Reddit, and we bitched about it amongst ourselves, and then eventually it got changed, right? Like, but if someone had come out, say, with a nullsec group from CCP and just sat there for like 3 hours one day hitting a bunch of Fortistars, they might have realized that sooner and thought, well, actually, this probably needs adjusting. This is kind of stupid, you know. And that's what they should be doing here.
Thing is that I feel like CCP just keeps adding gimmicks to the game instead of fixing the fundamental stuff. Like, there's so much wrong with the core of the game now. Like, the scalability and the balance in the game is just so off, and they don't really care anymore. They just kind of, you know, like, tweak a few stats and they're like, okay, this is fine, let's just add drifter content, or, you know.
This is exactly my point though. It's like you're building a chair and you're not sitting in it to see if it gives you horrible back pain on.
I think it's a reasonable point. I mean, it's entirely possible also that at some point along the line CCP changed their internal policy and simply didn't tell anybody about it. I mean, maybe they have
I have an answer for that.
I don't know.
I have an answer for that. Someone just pointed this out to me, and I forgot about this. And this might explain why CCP is so focused on these metrics we've never heard of. He says, I'm not sure if it has anything to do with this, especially with Hilmar. Hilmar usually in the past had a 20% stake in the company. And that PA is planning on paying out 50% of their purchase contract based solely on performance-based metrics. How well the game is doing, how many people are playing. So the question then leads is, all this talk CCP's done in the last month about performance of the game, how many people are playing, how many people are active in the game, could it have a lot to do with the PA situation and how PA is paying out based on people playing the game?
Wait a second. I tuned out there for half a second, and then I tuned in the middle when you. I tuned in the middle when you started talking about performance bonuses. With the
it says
PA.
part of PA's purchase in the contract was 50% of the purchase contract is based on performance metrics, whatever that is. So could it be that a lot of their talk, a lot of their push for, hey, here's this DAU, it's way up, and here's this MAU, it's way up, and all this stuff they're trying to share as information that we've never seen before, heard them talk about before, but all of a sudden they are. Could it be tied to their PA contract and getting?
I think the fact that you've
finished.
seen Hilmar on more talk shows and more speeches in the last year than you have in like the last 5 years might be a dead giveaway there.
That makes sense. I mean, the contract was announced before Vegas last year.
It was a year ago, last year.
Yep. Yeah, but it was announced for a few months, but legally it didn't become effective right around the time, if I remember correctly, it was right around Vegas.
Yep.
Last year.
Because there was a ton of PA, like Korea media there, right? Remember?
Yeah, like there was, and like October. I was very stoned at the time because thank God.
Yeah, it was October.
Vegas, and I was super fucked up through pretty much all of Vegas. But then, yeah, so that would be mid-October is like
it became effective
2.5 months
before Vegas. Yeah.
So we are coming up on the 1 year mark.
So it says effective October 12th was the contract effective. So it would explain. I mean, Hilmar said in the podcast that it has nothing to do with PA or any of that, but you're hearing things come out of like Hilmar himself that you've just never heard in 10 years of him speaking. Him talking about things that people don't really care about that live in 0-0 and play the game, right? Like, and again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying this is a bad nothing against CCP. I'm not making money or anything bad. It just kind of shows where their thinking's going, why they're feeling they have to get in there and really adjust things and really get into something that they've never worried about, right? They've always treated this as this sandbox and build the game how you want. We're going to tweak things here and there. We're going to balance it. We're going to add some content here. We're going to kind of guide you, but we're not going to like be the ones that force you to do something or deal with something like the Drifter event. And this could explain it.
Okay, now I got to do a bunch more research.
Sorry, someone brought this to my attention in Discord just now, and I didn't even think of it. So, but hi, you said you had something you wanted to talk about. Let's hear it. What do you think?
Well, on this topic or just in general?
I mean, you said you had a speech prepared. I want to hear the speech.
Well, no, the speech. Well, I was just going to talk about the general LowSec and what's been happening in the game for like LowSec entities. Well,
this is the worst segue in history for what it's worth.
It's time for Hiwanto's shit talk hour.
Yeah, right? That's what we wanted, right? Like Hiwanto's here for talking. Let's hear it.
I got to go into lawyer land here for a bit while I look into this shit. So
good. I'm gonna talk shit about Matani right now, so it's better.
Casino? I think I saw you.
Talk some of that shit about me.
Go ahead.
You weren't at the casino? I thought I saw you at the casino in London last week.
Me?
Yeah.
Did you see some random fucking brown guy and you assumed it's me?
Throwing really bad dice.
Shit. Yeah, that was me, dude. I lost $10,000.
Just back and forth from the ATM to the table.
This guy was losing shitloads of money.
He went back and forth to the ATM 11 times.
10 grand! Wait, hold on a second. Roll back a second.
Easily.
What? Yeah, dude. This whole RMT money from Snuff, dude. All the Lenny money.
Pocket money, huh?
All the fucking Lenny money's gone, dude.
Oh, the Lenny money's gone. He gambled it away at the casinos. Okay.
The irony.
But go ahead. We're reading.
So yesterday there was like an Asbel timer that's like a Plex type of market thing, and you know how there's the Keepstar in HiSec, which is where Plex is sold. Apparently the agreement for that, the agreement even includes PanFam, Test, and Goons because they showed up to shoot it all together, which is very interesting in my opinion. So that's quite weird. First of all, like you guys are fucking weird.
Hey, hold on. What's weird about wanting to make money?
You guys have enough money, all right? Can you guys go? You know,
hang on, one thing. You say no, I think you're referring to Pandemic Horde, not.
Yeah. PL's not included in that. I don't know about you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Isn't PL like basically a renters now or something? I don't know. What are you guys doing?
I can afford rent high.
It's really sad.
Yeah, I don't know. You want to cut me in on this Asbel thing? I'll come help defend it next time. Like, come buzz your tower.
I'll talk to Gobbins, I guess. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
Gobbins is
Init was
arranging
helping. Well, Init was on the other side, right? So it's Init versus Goon. So may as well put PL on the other side, NC as well. We can shake it up a bit.
It's kind of weird that this is I think sort of a knock-on consequence of all the Drifter bullshit. It's like, okay, are the great powers all collectively, and of course I include Snuff among them, going to be having a slap fight in HiSec over like basically who is getting the biggest cut over the IMF or the World Bank? There's some sort of like globalist mercantile Bretton Woods analogy goes here, I guess.
Can I have my 1%? That's all I
Sorry.
want to know.
I'm still in like lawyer mode over here.
No, yeah, please go ahead. But all right. So Hiwanto, let me see if I got this right. And you can clarify this. An Asbel was put down. Horde wants it shut. Invites
Horde
the
NC.
alliance parties, whoever's involved in this whole like HiSec thing, invites them to come shoot it, and then you show up to defend it with initiative. Is that correct?
With initiative and Volta. Volta's in a carrier fleet, and then us and Init and subs, and then.
So who
also are the guys that got like super mad about Villy raising the taxes in the perimeter thing
by 1%? Yeah, that was him. That was Volta.
Wait, I'm very. Isn't this like classic shit? Why?
No, it was anchored in LowSec though, because you know you call there's like still LowSec systems in the region, right?
Oh, I see now.
Yeah. No, but yeah, and then there was a really big fight that happened in Sujarento. By a famous goon sig run by famous goon FC Thomas Lear and K Noon, and they really.
Oh, is this the Liberty Squad from last week? Yeah, those look like It's nice to see some spaceships blowing up. I mean, we did lose that one fair and square, but I'm delighted to see, after the Northern campaign, Vince played that the right way. The fact that Vince was on the Meta Show a couple weeks ago was still really weird to me, but, it's good to see shit blowing up. I was pleased by that. I mean, we did lose that one, no question.
I gotta ask Kai about that one, because I wasn't there. I was just in the sidelines laughing really, really comically from the grandstands as I watched monster trucks throw at each other. But the question I have for you is, was Peanut Smash Titan, was that bait, or was that a legit? Oh god, he got bumped.
I'll talk you through the whole escalation chain.
Yeah, go ahead, please. I wasn't there, so
we set up in Max, RT Max, right? And then they warped in Abaddon's, and Jay jumped in. Did you jump into Triage, Jay, or were you already on grid? You jumped.
Oh no, I gated in with them.
Okay, yeah, Jay gated in, and then
I forgot to fill up with cap boosters though beforehand.
So Jay had no cap boosters, so they just died completely, and they lost all the Lokis. And then they eventually pinged off, and we were sitting a bit off of them, and then they warped on top of us, and we refit the ACs, and we started brawling them, and we had like a triage on grid, and then they escalated with 5 dreads, so we dropped like 10, and then they dropped like their full load, and then we escalated with our dreads, and then we dropped Titans at 60 off or something, and then from what I understand is this is all Jay's fault, and the Vanquisher bumped into them, and Jay decided to shoot it, and then he choked because Jay is really bad FC, and then they just shot the Vanquisher and fed all their dreads.
Jay's not really an FC though, is he? He's like
he's a
one of
meme
those
lord.
helper dudes.
You mean like Theta Squad, like the PvE FCs, right? That's what Jay does.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, Jay fed like.
What are you doing up in Losec feeding to high then, Jay?
Well, you won't fight us, so we gotta fight somebody.
But no, they've stopped doing anything after that. So Mitani, you need to, lay down the whip.
80 dreads, oof.
Oh, we're juggling a whole lot of things over here. It's been kind of interesting because there's so much from at times like this when there's things like the Tigan Station things going on, or like we're doing some weird fucking thing in HiSec and tripping over ourselves collectively because it's never been done before. Nobody knows which way is up and down. Pretty standard issue new org creation shit. But meantime, you're trying to basically reassure people that the blackout could be good for Eve and to keep the faith and just sort of hold everything together. So I think that organizationally speaking, that there's been a lot more, confusion, which is potentially a good thing. We don't know because we don't have clear data on it as to how some of these big orgs are operating. Because we're having to reassure our own people while trying to find out how many of our own people are actually playing compared to what the company statistics are claiming. And, it's all just sort of a shit show. I think I found an article.
Yeah, you did find it here. It says right here. I'm going to link it in chat, a little quote here. It says 225 million will be up front with another 200 million deferred and based on performance. So there's the quote right there. So it definitely is performance based.
Is this the dread thing or is
sorry. Mittens found the link. But let me ask you.
You're not going to get your 200 mil, dude.
Yeah, your SRP is performance based,
You're not going to get it.
If I'm well for dreads, do I get like a bonus?
So while we're talking about dread whelps, there's another one here that happened on the 23rd in Deterid. And I'm gonna have to ask. I might go to the Torrid. Yeah, sorry. What happened with that, Elo? Since we're gonna do a quick segue here to more dread whelps.
All of our dread sigs are feeding their dreads like immensely. We lost like 100 dreads this week, I think.
Really? Well, I saw this looks like a whelp for tests, so that's why I'm kind of curious. Were they trying to kill something or what?
Yeah, they've been trying to like Pico gang with like 12 dreads and on stuff all the time. But we have people doing. Oh, hold on, my page is going up on.
Why the fuck do you have a pager?
I just want to point out that I learned something new this week. Elo Knight has a freaking pager. Like,
you grow roses. Elo has a pager. I have no idea.
I made it for real time.
Yeah, it's true. That's the reason he's on the show. Bloke comes to me being like, you still coming? Like, yeah. What about Elo? I haven't been able to get hold of him. I'm like, hang on, let me.
And he pages Elo. Elo messaged me and goes, I got a page at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon saying I have a show to do tomorrow. Get home.
All I saw was 4 p.m. when I came out of the tunnel. I was like, oh, okay. But we've been basically doing like little hunting since the blackout back and forth with dreads. So like you can bring 20 dreads and go for a ratting super or whatever, go for a Titan. I think yesterday we got 1 Titan and 2 supers of X-Death. but they've been doing the same thing back and forth to us, right?
Yeah.
But you usually just either get like a really clean kill, or you just totally feed relentlessly, which is what I believe that is.
They try to do Ninja Dread things, the
Yeah,
Ninja Dread
exactly.
Master.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
exactly like that. You jump in, and then they're just like, oh, he made his sign out. They're already jumping in bad times. You just have to gauge it, really, which yesterday we got really, really lucky 3 times. And then
Okay.
unlucky once.
That's
So it's
interesting.
the
So,
same thing.
you guys are just flinging endless amounts of dreads at each other. I guess in this,
Yeah, exactly.
this is their like what 500 dread catch they wanted to build at one time. What was
Well,
they call that?
Manhattan Project?
The Manhattan Project. Here we go. So Hess's Manhattan Project is live. That's good to know.
It's not even from the dread cache. It's just people using like their corpse and stuff. Because you can get, if you can't get 10 or 15 dreads from your corp, you should probably just merge to somebody that actually has a real corp, right?
Yeah, I don't even know if my corp even owns a Titan. So
Those are going away if it's recording this interview, anyways, right? Gotta reprocess those into more dreads.
yeah.
So was
Yeah.
that? Did the Asbel get saved?
I have-
guess since they fed.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it got everybody ended up getting like stood down or something or other.
Yeah.
I was literally like in the middle of negotiating a deal involving 2 separate high sec entities that had nothing to do with this, and then when I came out of those meetings, then it was, oh hey, by the way, like why isn't it over here and what's going on? And then there was a whole shit show of just like lack of communication because we've been trying to sort out this financial thing while a couple of key people have been out of town for the last couple of weeks, and it was just like one of those classic like shit shows, basically. Like, what do your left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing? Oh God, what happened? Oops, shit, we're really sorry.
See,
We're
Here-
gotta go have a lot of meetings.
This Asbel is set up in competition of the Tranquility Trading Tower, right?
I don't know.
Is that what
Yeah,
it is?
it's affiliated with that thing. I'm not sure if it's actually flagged by it or not.
Is it affiliated with it, or is it to try and take some of the Plex revenue away from them?
It might
Are we
be. I
talking
mean-
about the thing? Which Asbel are we
So-
talking about?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Okay, so Headliner. See, the thing about that Asbel is the guy who put it down from Volta, he tends to put him down and claim
Oh
that
yeah,
gonna be
it's
zero
that
tax.
thing. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
The TTT
yeah.
guys are fighting the Volta guys because the Volta guys are mad because Villy publicly raised the tax, and there was a whole drama about it. I think that's what.
Can I
So which-
just interject about how
Yeah,
gay
please,
it
Ty,
is
go
that
ahead.
you guys complain about like game mechanics, and then you guys will sit there at your little meetings in HiSec about HiSec, and then you're all like fucking jerking each other off on a table. Like what? Oh yeah,
hang
I
on.
just came out of my 2 HiSec meetings, and then I went into another one. Yeah, that's me, Mitani.
I mean, are
HiSec.
you shaming me for enjoying jerking off on a table? Like, I think this is a no kink environment. Like, you know, I'm a consenting adult with myself. I mean, what's the
I don't
problem?
understand why that's a bad thing. I don't understand where you're going with that.
You guys like complain about how the game is like shit from mechanics and stuff, and then you guys are
What?
just
The game's
like
great.
being super friendly with each other. It's not great.
Oh, I mean, I completely agree. Like the fact that there is, I think, like I said this several. I mean, fuck, was it like a month and a half ago or whatever? I said there was going to be a pretty nasty ripple effect from like the Drifter thing of like you never want to have all the autocrats in a trench together against a common enemy, and that's
about the
what
Benjamins,
happened
baby.
after the Drifter thing with.
Yeah.
With like all the high sec players and a lot of guys in low sec and a lot of the wormholers, a lot of the same people who are like, ooh, like Blackout is going to be the end of the blocks, this, that, the other thing, were herfing all those blurfs during the Drifter shit. And there are consequences, and those consequences are a direct result of the fact that a whole bunch of shitbags decided to come at collectively nullsec, and nullsec is actually quite predictable in certain ways of you know, people mess with us, we collectively mess back. And I don't think that's really a surprise because that's how human nature and EVE itself has always worked. It doesn't really have anything to do with gameplay mechanics.
Wait, here's
you're
one.
You're saying that like 10 people posting on Reddit and like 3 wormhole alliances have basically made you make a super coalition to protect the HiSec keep stuff, so you can make a little bit extra change on top
Well,
of the
hey,
silly
this is
internet.
Wait,
this
no,
is where
that
I was going to with
Yeah, go
this, right? So where does it? So because we established, right, for my own ignorance, that this Asbel is to compete with the Tranquility Trading Tower, which was launched by Test, but then Test has since cut in Goonswarm and Horde, right?
Imperium. And Horde.
It's
Imperium.
like, yeah, like we're
But is it
still
all of the
figuring.
Imperium?
Yeah, like that's how it's supposed to be set up, and we've been working out under Villy's alt corp with the TTT, and then there's a whole bunch of other shit going on there.
So
that is
what was-
part of the hot mess of trying to
Yeah,
create
and
this.
Vince
So
was
what
like, I don't
Init
want a cut
doing
of it.
there? What was Init doing?
So Init
coming
thought
to
it
defend
was.
the Asbel?
So Init thought they were going to a fight with Snuff and Volta to shoot Horde. They had no idea we were even coming.
Are you sure about
So
that?
yeah. So the Init
Well,
FC
headline is saying shit.
didn't know.
Well, you weren't doing it
He had
enough,
no
so-
idea we were even going.
Well,
So
This kind of thing actually happens a lot. Like
yeah, it
this
happens
is
a
like
lot.
regardless,
And
like
it's their own
regardless of the HiSec situation or what have you, but one of the things about managing an extremely large coalition is that when you're like working on one set of things, if that hasn't been published or announced to everybody yet because things are still in the works, then you end up with these like left hand, right hand situations. Like whenever there's like a non-invasion pact or any sort of like treaty deal, a lot of times you have to run around and tell the people who have been like solo sov hacking, hey, by the way, there's a deal now, something is happening, or there's something that works, like please back it off a bit. So like this is unfortunately something that happens probably 2 or 3 times a year.
yeah, but why do you feel the necessity to be in like this agreement anyways? Do you not make enough money?
Does it make you unhappy? Do you not like it? Are you sad that we're
No,
involved
I
in
just
stuff
find
the, more,
like that?
the more taxes we
Really-
get, the more dreads we can feed.
Yeah,
we
yeah.
need
Look,
to-
Oh,
we need to-
Find it
Hi. I'll put it like this. Hi. I'll put it very clearly. Right. This quote from CCP will fix everything, and you'll understand why we're doing this. Okay. They're wanting to change up 0-0 very, very drastically. And then Hilmar says this. A lot of designers at CCP are interested in faction warfare tweaks and changes. And that Hilmar himself has joined Faction Warfare Discord and sees a lot of potential quick changes. So they're wanting to change all of 0-0 and just fuck it all up and see where it goes and just kind of cause chaos. But they're not even involved in 0-0 to see where that chaos is leading to. They're
Yeah,
busy
can I just
doing
point out
Faction
that,
Warfare
like,
and HiSec. Like
all these people that play Eve at CCP, all these designers, sound like the driest people ever because they
Yeah.
always say they're doing planetary interaction wormholes, and I'm in a faction warfare server.
Well, if
That's
you look
the
at their
driest
fit,
thing.
like look at their fits when they go on like the Bjorn B rooms and stuff. It's like the worst fits
Oh, I
ever. They have like no actual idea of how to build.
that Nyx was horrible. That leads me to this point though. You're saying, okay, why would we all band together to make money? Well, don't you have enough money? Well, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. CCP is literally just flicking switches on 0-0 left, right, and center to the point where like the blackout thing happened, and it was like, wait, what? Wait, what? The drifter
I mean,
thing. So why wouldn't
you're
we all
right.
get together and make money?
But let's not forget that this the Tranquility Trading Tower thing. You've been involved in that since well before the blackout and the drifter thing came as well, and that's just about increasing your footprint across various parts of the map, right, and the game and the players
Maybe.
inside there.
But wasn't it Gobbins that like it was like he said, hey, why don't we all get together and make a whole bunch of money? It seems a lot of people forget that.
Why don't we
right?
get Aerith on next week to talk about this? Because
Well, Mitani
Like-
agreeing with Gobbin.
oh well, yeah, I mean it's extremely strange in the first place that Gobbins and I are even talking to each other, and that's one of the things
Yeah.
that started off not because of the TTT stuff, but because of the nullsec first room. Right, like there's a Discord channel that has all the autocrats in it now across all of the organizations, and that happened in response to the Drifter attacks, and that has not gone away. You know, you screw up and you put a bunch of people in a trench together, and stuff happens from.
I have a question for Haya. It's a different route of discussion. Did you read Falcon's post this week? The one that got a bunch of upvotes about how he would fix low sec cap?
No.
Okay. Oh my
Caps
god.
would not be allowed in low sec. They would be able to
Oh,
jump.
okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Can I
he
just-
wants to take.
oh.
Okay, to answer this, so before people get confused on
What
the
the
show
fuck
here,
has happened this
Falcon-
week? Jesus
Wait,
Christ!
no,
Falcon
there
wants
was
to
no
take-
super caps in low sec.
right? He wants
Over.
those super caps and titans to be able to be used in low sec.
How do they
He
move?
also wants to limit asset safety to where you can't just asset safety trillions of ISK of things to a nice secure place. He wants to put a limit on the amount you can do to at any given time in asset safety. So what do you think about that, Mr. Wanto?
I mean, all right.
Yo, there
They
was-
did-
Link the
There
Oh,
was
here we
no
go.
sign
Okay,
of-
okay. Keiko says no sinos and no supers.
There's no signs of this. And then there was also like another like really fucking
triple
stupid
logistics,
NPC thing.
How are people going to get to Nullsec?
Yeah, it's gonna triple logistics.
And the other thing was Supers and Titans wouldn't be allowed to take gates anymore. It would literally be impossible to leave some regions, I think.
Can I just point you back to what I said a little while ago about is anyone playing the game?
Yeah.
Or they're playing it in these weird little like zones. Well, I mean, we know Falcon's history. Like he's a longtime Lowsec player. He was Verone before he went to work for the company. Ran a long time, very well respected, very well known Lowsec Pirate Corp Vito, or do they say Vito Dot? I don't know. Whatever.
So at what point does that become irrelevant? Like, how does it work to say Speedfall?
You gotta understand.
Those aren't credentials.
His experience is irrelevant at this point. If he's not currently playing the game,
it's not Jay though. Hold on. You're thinking about it in the wrong way. You got to think about it in this way. You're saying it's irrelevant, but you have to realize who's he speaking to. Satonia, a member of Volta. Volta likes 10-man gang roams and nano ships to where the second they're in trouble, they're gone. They leave. They go back out the wormhole, back into Thera. They come in, they try to kill something, they get away without losing anything, and then they post about it. The 10-man gangs from 100-man alliances is where Falcon wants the game to go towards, to benefit those people. And you're seeing that in the way that they talk in the last month. So if you view it with that bubble, then everything they're doing makes perfect sense, because if that's where they're trying to go, they're trying to limit mass-scale coalitions. They're trying to limit all the things they've done in the last 5 years.
No, but if
here's
you
a
read all of his
quote from
changes,
Falcon's post. Here's a quote from Falcon's post. This is about him wanting to change Titans in some way. I'd delete all Doomsdays other than the Lance, and then make the Lance focused on other capital ships.
That's basically the most retarded thing I've heard about.
between you and them, and it's a big damage rope between them. You can just like give people the old razzle dazzle.
We should razzle dazzle. I see one.
But if you read his post, it's basically a whole thing to kill dreads. But he says the reason you should be using dreads is to hammer a structure or as a show of force. So you'd bring one dread to get to damage cap, or you're having a Chinese military parade.
Hang on, no.
That's his main reason. No, if you read the whole post, that's the only reason you'd ever have a cap fight is someone doing a fucking military parade.
But were there alliances that used to do that, right?
No, Ranger Regiment does that all the time. Ranger Regiment does it all the time. But that's the only alliance that does it.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with conga lines. What is wrong with the conga line?
I'm sorry, like this guy.
Read his whole post. That's the only reason you'd ever do it is to have either gank one dread with your one dread, or you're having a military parade in someone else's prime time.
This guy is a community guy, right? Why is he posting about?
Well, that's another thing. That's
He said this, Headliner. He said this. He said, if I could have my way, which I have no control over the game balance and mechanics the way they are, this is what I would do. But here's the thing. When you have him as like the face of EVE, and then you have Helmar parodying that, that's the two biggest names that the players deal with on a day, like a week-to-week basis, right? So they have to mean something. Obviously the Corp is going to go in that direction.
If Falcon has Hilmar's ear, and Hilmar gets his way with the company, which he probably fucking will do, because he's the CEO, he could be like, yeah, we'll just do this. The players will love it. With all these upvotes I got on Reddit about these ideas, we should just do it.
I mean, I don't love
everything Falcon said is basically what those like 10 people on Reddit complain about, like remove signers from Lowsec and shit like that. Every time there's like a battle report posted where we've dropped Titans. Like, it's not just because we drop Titans, it's not going to fix Lowsec. We'll always just fucking change to like still be oppressive in Lowsec. Like, you guys
you'll just roam in 100-man Macariel fleets. That's not going to, like, Sinos don't affect that. Like, I feel like they're trying to look at this small, very vocal group on Reddit and go, okay, we hear you. We're going to try to adjust the game to allow you to have more fun. But they don't play with those people. They don't actually log into the game and deal with those people in the game the way it is, to see that the vast majority of the player base does not play that way, does not play that style of game. The vast majority of the player base doesn't have Volta money to just sit around and PvP 24/7. You have people who are space middle class, who are out there in Rorquals, or you have someone that's wanting to get his first super carrier and he's never done it, right? And he's trying to build up a bank of money to buy his first super carrier. So he can be like, look at me, I got a big ship, and tell his friends about it.
Bring this back around to the whole interview thing with Token Stations. Hilmar said in that interview, there are 16,000 new players a week who download the game and start playing it. Firstly, I don't believe that for a fucking second. No way, 60k people they're downloading this a week and trying it out. Maybe they try it out for 10 minutes or whatever, but like, I reckon half. But like,
yes.
You're making all these changes to affect ISK making that obviously the ISK making affects veterans, right? But it affects the new players, these 16,000 a week players that are coming in. Why are they quitting? You know, are they quitting because it's harder to make money because of the blackout or whatever? No, they're quitting because the MPE sucks. It always has sucked. There's no drive to like do anything. Like low sec, what do you want to do if you want to make money in low sec as a new player? Well, you do exploration or you kill clone soldier rats in an Algos. That's it. Everything else is gated by SP. Yeah, you could do faction warfare, but it's all it's the bots have covered it.
The faction warfare thing is something that is really interesting to me because it keeps coming up as like these big reform pushes. Like whenever there's hey, let's make a difference, we should do something with faction warfare. And I don't know, maybe Hilmar is like playing in faction warfare now or something, but I think. I don't remember the hard facts on this, so I could be completely wrong. But faction warfare strikes me as like one of those things where it's like, if we just fix faction warfare, like the people who love faction warfare, they fucking love it. And from what I understand, it's like a really cool kind of gameplay. But kind of like Wormhole Space, it's a niche, and it hasn't really had like thousands and thousands of people in it. Like I like the idea of faction warfare getting some love because it has been neglected for like it's kind of like low sec in general. It's like one of the areas that's been completely neglected through the history of EVE. But if you're looking to make changes in EVE and you're looking to pump up your DAU or MAU or what have you, faction warfare isn't where I'd go. Like, I don't think the magic bullet to like make EVE vibrant is in faction warfare.
It's a mix, right? It's like it's a way to make money while doing a little bit of PvP, which is fine. But if you look at it currently, there's I don't know how many of you read the official EVE Online forums. I do sometimes, and there are like threads of like Chinese players, I'd like to say, that are selling large quantities of like via like a month ago or two, there was a dude selling 6,000 VNI blueprints, and he could supply you another 2,000 a week.
He likes faction warfare, dude.
Yeah. You must love faction warfare.
Here's my question, though.
Hi, what you got?
Well,
go ahead.
Faction warfare, like, in like 2015, there used to be bigger entities. There'd be like hundreds of man fights and stuff, and it kind of just dwindled down. And I think that's what people are more pushing for, but they don't understand that it's not the mechanics that have changed that in a way. It's the fact that the overall game mechanics that don't just affect low sec. It's, the changes in the ships and everything have basically crippled those alliances because they've just kind of dwindled down and died out because they can't really fight in the way they used to.
On a limb here and claim victory for killing faction warfare, like the 2015s. Yeah. We recruited Snuff, gave them a massive Titan fleet, and then they left. And now no one can contest anything in low sec.
Exactly.
Well, here's a question about... Here's the thing I don't think CCP gets. So Sotonia brings up the point of, you can make 700 mil an hour once you are max set up for it. Again, that comes back to Jay's point. You got to have the SP, and you got to have the startup ISK. You're not just going to go do burner missions 23/7 as a new player. That's a very high...
Everyone's doing it. It dilutes it.
Right, and then on top of that, you look at this, okay, we're going to fix faction warfare. I used to stream going to faction warfare space, flying around, going into a site, hoping somebody would come shoot me. There's one of two outcomes. Either you're going to get a gang of 10 who look for that solo guy that CCP wants, that solo PvPer, or you're just going to see nobody for tens of systems at a time, and you're going to spend 3 hours trying to find someone. You're better going into a staging system in horde space if you're looking to do something. But the thing that I don't understand is their faction warfare push here. They wanted to fix faction warfare. Is that if they really wanted to fix it, you would open it up to everyone, because there are so many corps and alliances that live in 0-0 who cannot participate because they don't have the standings as a whole, and they prevent those big groups from even participating. So nobody's looking to do it, right? Because if the general progression
that might not be a bad thing. Like, we looked
maybe
intervening. Like, we looked into taking over faction warfare, and then the mechanics prevented the big groups from really getting stuck in like that, and that might actually be a positive.
What worries me here, and this is my last comment on this, and maybe you all can comment, especially some of the fact that a lot of you are Alliance leadership, is that CCP made a push for as long as I've played this game now, going on 12 years in 2 weeks, right? I've been playing it for 12 years. It's a long time. Mittens, of course, is more, but in my 12 years, the push or the general direction by CCP was, we're going to make 0-0 a place where if you want to go take over a region and build up a space farm and field with all your friends and just kind of have your own little like area of space away from everyone to kind of do your own thing, we're going to help you do that. We're going to make the PvE better. We're going to make the content better. We're going to allow you to build up that space.
It's like the CSM told CCP when they were like, hey, we're going to introduce roll calls. Hey, you shouldn't do that because that's a really fucking dumb idea. And then CCP are now being 3 or 4 years later, why don't you guys tell us this was a bad idea? We have to now change the entire game.
I don't know, Bolt. You don't understand. You didn't fight for your space. That's what CCP is telling me. You didn't fight for your empire. You don't understand, guy. You don't understand how you get your space. It was given.
Is they really saying that?
Well, I didn't see that bit. You got your space, now you have to fight for it. Is the direct quote from their thing, right?
But you don't.
But this
that's
makes
what
no
they
sense.
said.
This is
I
what
know
I
it doesn't make any sense.
day.
How did you get your space? Well, I don't know. I just woke up with it. But now you have to fight for it, according to CCP, which you've been doing forever.
Well, like, here's the thing, though. We said this last week on the show. Half of Eve is uninhabited right now. Literally half of it. And they want people to fight for the space that's already inhabited when there's literally regions, and we showed this with Fade and Pureblind, that are empty. There is a soul in Fade. They mined 8 billion ISK in a month in Fade. That's the lowest number on an MER report since they started making them, right? So if that place is that dead, but they want you to fight over the space that you've taken the time and effort to build up because they think that you should have had to earn it, what's stopping people from just going living in Fade? Like, what's stopping?
Well, I mean, I think that the idea that if you want to hold space, you should continue to fight for space isn't really all that crazy. Like, I think
that's not
that
what they said, though.
I mean, let's put it like this: we are actually, if you guys want to run over and keep arguing about this, I'm happy to do that because there's a lot to discuss here.
I got an hour in me, dude.
But like, one of the things that has bothered me in general about the debate as a whole is that the focus on what R-Eve thinks gives a very distorted picture of what NullSec actually thinks as NullSec, because there are all these assumptions that everybody in NullSec wants like peace and security and free ISK and all this stuff. And a lot of the things that I would like to see in terms of the game changing actually involve a lot more of violence and complexity and novelty, right? Because like doing the same war over and over, like, okay, we're going to go fight Vince again for like the 7th time in the last 10 years, whoop-de-doo, like whatever. One of the things that is bothered, like playing, again, I always bring up Warframe because Digital Extremes is the closest example that we have to a company that has a similar business situation as pre-acquisition CCP, as in they have one online property and they live or die versus that property. Do they invest in the property of the one game, that being Eve or Warframe, or do they try to do spin-offs like Spark and Vampire and all that other stuff? But one of the things is this, like, balance changing regularly would be one of the most important changes to the gameplay of everybody in the game. When I say balance, I mean ship balance. Like, why are we still in the year of our Lord 2019 waiting sometimes years for major doctrinal shifts to take place? Like, we've seen a few doctrine shakeups in the last few months or what have you.
We really haven't.
But like, not in any real way. Like swapping out Serbs because we're not using them anymore, and instead of using Eagle, I mean, we're using Eagles as an up jump from Ferox's back in the day. But like, we went with like a T3C. Okay, couple different things. One, I've always been a huge subcap guy. I think that subcapital gameplay is the basis of EVE Online, and I say that as the person in charge of the largest super capital fleet this game has ever seen, right?
Agreed.
I hate Titans. I hate super caps. Our position from the beginning all the way back to the early days of Goonswarm has been death to all super caps. Now we just have them all, but you know, the fact that subcapital gameplay has been de-emphasized, I think, is bad for the health of the game. I think the fact that our newbies, essentially, we're having to set up some sort of like welfare program to like inject our fucking newbies into Rorquals because it's the only thing that makes sense for basic, you know, production in NullSec currently, when back in the day, like, subcaps mattered more, subcaps were important, and it wasn't just something that you would skill past to get into a ship. I've always believed that EVE Online should have subcapitals as the basis for warfare, and capitals and then super capitals with escalating rarity, if we have to have super capitals in the first place. But, you know, that's obscured. We don't have these debates about how there should be more balancing of ships because everybody is going, oh, you're just a nullseeker, you want peace and security. I was in favor of the blackout. I think super caps are abomination from the beginning, and we can't really discuss ways of having war and murder become interesting in nullsec because you have all these fucking idiots on Reddit going, "Oh, you're just a nullsec. You want safety and security." Like, Ascendant Frontier died, and pretty much everybody got the memo that that model of nullsec doesn't work. Peace is death.
Here's a comment by Hilmar, and this comment, again, another worrying comment by Hilmar. It says, ISK faucets and sinks are out of whack. There's too much ISK in the system. There's a lot of fundamental economic problems that they plan on addressing. Plex prices are rising and out of whack because the value of ISK is falling because work in EVE is not valuable enough. We need to put the risk up to make ISK more valuable. The richest 1% in EVE is way too powerful. It's worse than reality. Cruel but fair. Over the next 6 months, we plan to fix this. But here's my problem with this. And this is my another rant of mine, is that you, because of the way the game is designed now, because you view the game as a wormhole, the blackout, Kumi points this out in his post, the blackout forces people. You either get a capital ship and make money with a capital ship, or you're not going to get saved because 10 guys are going to decloak on you and they're going to murder you, and then you're going to be out all your money that you would have just made over the last hour, right? Because a VNI takes an hour to replace, okay? Yeah, a carrier may take longer, but you're not going to die in a super carrier if you're paying attention and have friends. So the umbrella policy. So you're gonna. Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I see it in like a different way. I see that as them kind of moving all the blame onto the economics and of the game, whereas it's not really the economics. It's more when they talk about the ISK faucets, they're the ones closing ISK faucets and. Sorry, the ISK sinks even. They're closing the ISK sinks and just opening the ISK faucets. And, like, by not balancing ships and adding, variety to the game and just not adding any fight instigators or anything like that.
You can literally have everything you need in this game by buying a Nyx and, like, no, that's it. You'll be done for the next, 2 years if you have those two ships.
Okay, Falcon
says...
A Nyx
and what?
A Munin.
Yeah.
Falcon says here, he says, if you're not willing to go out in nullsec and risk, then you don't belong in nullsec. You should go back to Empire if you want to mine safely or rat safely. A lawless place should have lots of risk. Well, but here's another thing. Hilmar goes, we're going to take away the comfort from players from making ISK. Players' sense of security, the blackout. Bots are being massively affected by the blackout. And although they are changing their tactics, CCP will keep the focus on taking away the botters and making life uncomfortable.
No. They didn't say take away the bots. They said just try and disrupt. That's the best they can come up with. Is
right, but here's the thing though. I have seen less botting across all of EVE and the roaming I've done. But
local, dude.
The problem is that you can take away the comfort of mining and ratting, but then no one's going to do it, right? Because it's already not making enough money to go in a VNI and do VNI ratting. The reason people use VNIs and Myrmidons and Dommies and all these ships is because they can literally go in, go AFK, watch a Netflix movie for an hour, come back, move to the next site, right? And there's no enjoyment in it. Like you say about the game Warframe, there's enjoyment in it. There's a reason to want to do the PvE. EVE doesn't have that yet. And there's nothing that people, that's the reason people don't run burner missions en masse, because you have to sit there and pay attention and focus on what you're doing. And very few people have the effort or time to spend 2 hours doing one little thing for the hopes of making a bunch of money.
We was talking about today, someone brought up in one of the Kremlin meetings or whatever we had, was that someone was like, oh, people in my corp, they work 12 hours a day or whatever, and they come home and they just want to make a little bit of money while chilling on comms, but they can't do that anymore because they're getting stressed and having to manage a bunch of other shit that they didn't have to do.
Well, it's concerning because the only thing you see on Reddit, which is now the EVE official forums, apparently they should just shut the other things down, is the success stories of, oh, me and my 3 buddies, we ganked DBNI, it was the most amazing thing. There's nobody going, oh, okay, well, I got the shit beat out of me behind the dumpster in my VNI, and it was the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Reddit posts about my Nyx killing Branch, that kind of shit, yeah.
Well, no, but there's no counterplay to someone telling you, oh yeah, I got jumped by a gang of hooligans behind the dumpster. There's nobody posting that on Reddit because they don't want to be. There's nobody success story.
Because they'll just wander off. That's the vulnerable population.
Right. Had 2 stabs in my VNI, so I got away. It was pretty fun, actually. Nobody's pointing that out. So that's
nobody's going to celebrate that. You're right.
Stabs are getting deleted, didn't you see? Hilmar's
Hilmar made a
They're
point about that.
iterating on it, dude, so it'll happen eventually. But I mean, they said something about, oh, well, we want you to be on your toes and stuff like that. But if you followed everything they've said in public of the last year, if it was a basketball game, your ankles be broken trying to follow what they're actually going to fucking work on this time.
Let me ask you this: you're managing right now an umbrella, and I say this because you're put all your like Rorqual miners and your supers in this one little corner, and you're trying to defend them. You're trying to keep them alive, and you're managing this, and you're dealing with this. And so the question I have for you is, does it give you the opportunity to just socialize with your friends and hang out and talk, or do you have to be hyper vigilant for 4 or 5 hours, hoping someone doesn't fuck up, and you got to go save them because shit's in trouble? Like, do you actually get to come home and enjoy the game and then socialize and hang out with your friends? Sorry?
People won't try once I ping that I'm home. Usually people just don't try, and then I go into the bath and fall asleep. But I mean, for like a normal alliance, like I mean, if some alliance starting up, they have to be hyper vigilant because wormholes are spawning and all these things around. Or you could just join, get a super carrier and go to Delve or go to Malpace or something and be better. So if they're really trying to get to 100 versus 100 man fights, then that's the absolute wrong way to do it. You know what I mean? Like I have to upgrade my VNI to a Nyx so I can go there and be semi-AFK to watch Netflix instead of just fucking masturbating the V key trying to save my 75 mil so I don't become a Reddit post.
Yeah, I mean, one of the challenges with the Blackout thing from a deployment perspective is it's going to be harder to like leave one fleet behind and then send another marauding around the galaxy trying to make wars, right? Because you need more organization. It's much more efficient if people are using things like Rorqual, because Rorqual was the panic module and Sinonets and all that stuff. But like for the entities that aren't big enough to have an umbrella, you can't really, like, there's no real counterplay except for hypervigilance or finding other avenues to do stuff, which I guess is fine. But a lot of these, one of the things is that the people who are primarily criticizing the blocks based upon their ideas of what the blocks want, which are usually incorrect, are often advocating for policies that we say in advance will make blocks stronger. And then everybody is all surprised, like, oh, hey, why are you all working together now to do all this stuff in HiSec? This is a complete surprise, even though we all told you that we would do this in reaction to the things that were happening months ago. You know, it's one of these things, like the guys in Providence, like whatever, they can adapt, I guess, but they can't do their NRDS thing very well anymore. They'll never have an umbrella. If they try to set up an umbrella, one of us will probably go eat it for fun because we'll bait it out and just be something to do. But like some of these core areas of EVE gameplay are being ignored in the Blackout discussions. It's like, fix the balance, the balance situations, regularly iterate on the ships by changing those values to make the gameplay more dynamic with the actual ships we're shooting. Actual peace is bad, but there should be play and counterplay. And so, like, if there is something that can slip through a defense, like, I like the idea of having people in gate camps defending their space, which is why I'm usually critical of interdiction nullified ships, because then you can have counterplay of dudes in gate camps doing defense shit to try to protect regions and defend the space that they're living in. And then there's actual counterplay. But, 4 cloaking Lokis ganking some dude in his baby's first VNI or something like that, there's no counterplay to that. There's nothing you can do. It's a hard gank. You can't stop them from a defense net. You can't drop ships on top of them. Baiting them isn't efficient. You can deal with big gangs. And there's these, like, little tweaks that I think could make Blackout really great. Like, I think that it's obviously not the end of EVE right now. Like, everything's still here.
This reminds me of Horde, right? You saw this when Horde was first living in Pure Blind, right before Citadels came out, where they were literally having a turnover rate of like 5 to 1. Like, one guy would stay in the game, 5 guys would disappear within a week and never play again. And a lot of the comments came from, it's really impossible to do this. But here's a good point you bring up about the Cloaky and nullification thing. Kumi points this out. As a defender who has taken the time to build up space, it is exponentially more difficult to protect that space than it is to be the aggressor from wormholes or from bombers or from NPC stations, the worst of all,
to a certain degree,
go after somebody, right? You're not going to save a single VNI that's ready. You're not. They're all going to die. And even if you bait with one, it's probably still going to die, and yeah, maybe you'll kill a Loki, but the amount of effort you'd have to put in to then bait out those 4 Lokis is exponentially more high than the 4 Lokis are doing to kill one target.
Yeah, absolutely. But it only goes up to a certain degree, right? Like, once the person gets into a carrier, then it becomes iffy. Once he's in a super, like a super in Delve, I mean, the only people who have really been killing those is like Marshy and Olmeca with their bajillion accounts, watching everything and baiting them in anoms and stuff, right? You just have to jump dreads and hope that, you know, he's an idiot.
That one's an idiot. Yeah.
Well,
But you're okay. Go ahead.
just like you talk about, like, see, the thing is, I just don't see it as just balancing ships, Matani. Like, you talk about, you know, you can't just go to war and do XYZ, you have to defend your home and stuff now, but like, what is the incentive to even go to war anymore? There is no incentive. Like,
Yeah, I think that
more lacking than just balance.
I think that there's a whole bunch of reasons why we developed in the Imperium. At the time, for us, it was a new type of warfare, which was building the super fleet to be big enough such that we could actually deploy not just SIGs and squads, but not fully deploy everybody out of Delve and sort of be able to try to go around making war. Back in the day, when everybody had more discrete conflict drivers, and a lot of this has to do with the shifting from R64s, which were very clearly delineated as obvious conflict drivers, to the fracking system that we have now, where the value of any given moon is something that requires hours and hours to develop spreadsheets for entire regions, and it's just not as obvious which moons are worth fighting over. So that there's less conflict over regional control because there are fewer conflict drivers in those regions. And so something that was very unusual about nullsec warfare that cropped up when FozzieSov went in, because it's terrible, is people going to war just to blow up assets and not to take space. Back in the day, you went to war. Yeah, well, and max damage did not really go anywhere. They tried it, they made some noise about it, and that was just a blip, right? That was an unusual. Yeah, they tried it, it didn't work. The end. That was a. But now, because there is so much space that is either was filled with bots, I guess, or is just empty or whatever, and because you don't easily go, oh yeah, we should go take Malpais because it has 16 R64s in whichever constellations, or it's not as obvious, it's not as necessary, and it's just gotten weird. Like, people also don't want to go to Sov War. One of the things that was different back in the day was you would get kill mails, right? Like, when you were in Pos Sov, you would blow up Posses and you get kill mails and you could be kiting and all this other stuff. One of the reasons why nullsec people are not going to traditional Sov War as much anymore is that we deprioritize Sov War. Like, we go to war, we attack the citadels, we attack the hard assets, we try to blow up each other's fleets and super capital fleets, but there's always this awkward question of
congratulations,
who has to do the fucking hacking, right?
Congratulations, you won the Super Cap fight. Now you get to do Intosis for 3 weeks and, you know, fucking 4 a.m.
There's no reason to have a Super Cap fight anymore.
No, there's not.
Yeah, no, there isn't. But that's one didn't happen for Tribute, right? Like, if they did get the numbers or whatever on a bad day, there were attempts. In the most recent Tribute campaign, there were attempts that PL and CDOT could have made to significantly capitalize on some of the dumbness that we did, like with our supers. But they did. But like that was one of them. Like, we had I 1 or 2 times we split up like Titans in the same system, reffing Pocos or whatever, because we were bored. You could have made plays on that, but there was no point because, you know, we have a Super Cap fight and then what?
Yeah, and another thing about that war in particular was the decision by PanFam to relocate their center of gravity into the drone regions. Not only did it make sense in terms of like strategy and politics, it's almost like having really large regions that are far away. It's inherently defensible because no one wants to do that much Sovwanding. Like, Delve is a pretty tight footprint. Tribute, very small region. I was all fired up to go charging off after NC. When I got back from London a month ago, and I ran into a brick wall from the directorate of like, are you fucking serious? Like, yeah, sure. Like, you got to bug up your ass to do this, and you want to go kill Vince Drake, and that's all well and good. But like, have you seen how far away that is? And have you seen how many systems there are? And have you seen how burned out our people are from like doing, not after the victory, the Sovwanding, just the cleanup crap. Nobody likes FozzieSov gameplay. It has never found, like, where do you see anybody going, oh wow, we all love FozzieSov. We all just started to stop.
Higher than Everest, that cult was in Fraternity. They fucking love it. But that's like 30 days. And they're CCP's prime customers, then, I guess.
Ragnar can make hella money being a mercenary with just doing Intosis.
Oh, he doesn't play.
I mean, if they actually do it, and we could hire him out, I would love to hire Peak as a mercenary.
Let me give you
what you wish for.
Let me give you a scenario. Hold on. Elo might like that. Let me give you a question to the group, and this question is I think on what CCP does not understand. If Fraternity picked up their shit, moved to the drones tomorrow, and said, we're going to go about that life, we're going to go make an umbrella in the drones.
Hey, I mean, like those local fleets that are moving?
Right, yeah. But besides those, if they just packed up and moved, there would be no war in Eve right now for the first time in a long time. Nobody would be fighting each other, and I doubt anyone would care to go chasing, because here's the thing. If CCP were to come on tomorrow and say, look, we're getting rid of all the NPC 00 space in 1 month, deal with it, that'd be the end of Dread Bombs. Because you're not going to see anyone that willingly, like, look at TKE, for example.
That was another thing.
Willingly goes in. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
This is another Falcon
comment, yeah.
Silly comment. He was like, one thing he wanted to add was he wanted to add a limit to how many capitals could be docked in NPC nullsec station. That would be amazing, right? Because the first thing we would do is GSF would just
put a stash of our caps in
just
there.
The maximum amount of caps in each station, just so no one could do it. Yeah, that's what everyone would do.
And here's the thing: is that CCP's talked about. Well, 3 years ago, we had Falcon here, either Falcon or Fozzie, and they said, "Look, we would never get rid of NPC 00 stations because all these players would want to come back, and all their stuff would be gone, and we don't want that." But now they're looking at it and going, "There's a big chunk of there's a big chunk of Eve that just does not have NPC stations. So, if, like, all right, if you want to dread bomb TKE, you literally have to move your dreads through a regional long fucking gate. The only way into TKE is through a big ass regional gate. You can't Sino in. You can't even dreads.
You can Sino in from Curse, but taking
you have to go to Curse, right? You have to go all the way around. It's like 5 jumps. But that's the point, is you'd have to move all the way around. So nobody wants to do that. And there's no intention. So you see, like, for example, AlphaStar made a comment during one of his fleets. And I'm going to bring this up here because I want to hear what you guys have to say. He goes, look at me. I'm FC'ing a high sec op, and I'm using my Titan on a gate in 00 because nobody's going to dread bomb me. Lol. And that was his exact quote. And it's true, because without NPC 00 everywhere, like it is for Delve, you will never see an Omeka Gold dropping on all these supers or oracles up in the drones because he has nowhere to live to do it. Like he does.
I think, there's generally been like a broad consensus among the adults in the room in NullSec, CSM representatives, autocrats, things like that. Like on CSM 6, we openly talked about how we collectively, as that was the year that NullSec sort of took over the entirety of the CSM minus like 2 people, we advocated openly for NPC sections and NPC stations being added into the center of every nullsec conquerable region. And the reason for that is nobody who is in leadership in at least most of the, maybe there's some of them, but like by and large, people build empires in nullsec because they want to go to war. It is about war. It is about conquest between essentially civilizations and tribes. And real peace sucks. And one of the reasons why everybody was in favor of having NPC null added to every conquerable region wasn't because, nullsec guys would not like that because they want to just like rat and mine in peace. That's not true. You actually want to have an opportunity to stage invasions to blow up each other's shit, 1. And 2, you don't ever really want to have real peacetime, because if you have true peace and security, you have nothing to do. You need people like Olmeca Gold around to keep your dudes on their toes. Otherwise, they'll get fat and weak and useless. They will lose the killer instinct unless they are exposed to risk and forced to adapt, right? That's how you breed fighters and warriors. It's like the whole Dune Sardaukar thing. Anyway, the point is that it's really hard to go hunting in places like these regions that are notorious for botting. They're notorious for botting because they're safe. And the reason why they're safe is because, among other things, but primarily, there is no easy staging point. So NPC and nullsec should be a part of every single fucking conquerable NPC region, because there should never be true safety. Otherwise, you end up with Amist and the dark areas of the drones, and it's just bad. Very articulate for me ending that on. It's just bad.
Hi, Wanto. Here we go. We've had discussions about dread bombs. I mean, we've worked together on a few, and I've done the same with guys in Init and others, like we did against Horde. do you think having no NPC 00 stations would be good for dread bombs and that thing, or you think they should have them everywhere?
Well, yeah, because it's like stupid on all scales. Because like even on a smaller scale, like yeah, you need to be able to stage out, for example, NPC delve to actually hit delve. And like for example, when we dread bomb test, that was out of an NPC region. No way we can fucking move 200 dreads through like soft space unscouted, right? Like
but even when you do that you went to Stain, right?
Yeah.
Even when you do that, it's not that straightforward because of the gap between Stain and Esoteria. It's fucking huge.
But then how are we gonna log off like 100 dreads for 5 days waiting for an opportunity?
If you shouldn't be in Nosec if you're not willing to make these sacrifices.
Sorry. Yeah,
so I mean that's the CCP response.
Wasn't there some talking about offensive mining as well? As a thing?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was one of the things they wanted to do was offensive mining.
What?
Yeah, that was a fucking Hilmar comment.
Well, you could just go into other people's space and mine it out, and it would ruin them. I'm like,
so before the chat gets really confused, like Mittens is, Hilmar made a comment that depletion needs to be a core game mechanic. It's not good enough. We need to deplete resources. So he wants to envision a future where when you invade someone's home, you can then start mining them out and ratting them out and making it so they can't make money while you're invading them and prevent them from making money in the process.
Okay, the depletion argument, and it's something that is like super popular over the years, and I am going to destroy the depletion argument with 2 words: crop rotation.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, sorry, crop rotation. You take over farms and fields, you spread it out, you figure out how the depletion mechanics work, and then you optimize it such that you're doing fucking crop rotation. This is not hard.
Right.
Like there's a lot of these civilizational models that apply to all levels of like large group shares of resources. Resource depletion is something that humanity has dealt with since the birth of fucking agriculture. Congratulations. Right. Crop rotation. Maybe the blocks will need 4 regions each instead of a few, and that crop rotation might force us to expand our empires a little bit, I thought that we were trying to get empires to not expand too much.
Yeah, I know. And here's the confusing thing. You say crop rotation. If he wants you to deplete their resources while invading, why is it that the ADMs are tied to your ratting and mining? You're not going to rat and mine at someone's home. It's just going to make them
Congratulations for mining in our space. Yeah, it makes it easier for us to do.
All right, hubs are now a 6.0 instead of a 2.0.
It's like people that play making these changes.
No one's going to do the self-wonding anay, guy. You're not getting it, right?
We mine the region up to like a really high ADM, and we have to pay Ragnar Bile to solve.
But you'll be able to with all that offensive.
With all that money, yeah.
God, actually, seriously, like if people want to do mercenary Sovwanding corporations as a niche, please God, I'm sure you'd have a lot of buyers across all the nullsec blocks, because by and large, nobody likes FozzieSov, and we could just farm that out after we're done trying to murder each other in the fun ways. That would be.
Yeah, if they want to make it safer, why do they make anti-plexes? That's like the big safety thing to get around. You can make a bajillion of them in your space and a highway. That's like one of the biggest safety improvements they've made in the last year.
The supers and titans can take anti-blocks.
I'm not really sure the logic behind introducing these structures, to be honest.
But they say it won't be dangerous, but that is absolutely the reason why less people die on gates now.
Yeah, I mean, why do they, like, there's a lot of these things people talk about how EVE used to be super hardcore back in the day, but I remember during the Great War, it was a very different EVE. There was no asset safety. There was none of, nullification wasn't really a thing yet, certainly wasn't on the interceptors. Like, there's a lot of, like, supers and titans taking gates is still weird, much less putting one of them through an Anciplex. Like, it's just like, what?
It gets even better. CCP's actually talked about making it so that you can... what do you want to call it? Have deployable mini structures, like little structures that you can base out of for a day or two, and then they would just disappear. The disconnect, I think, here in CCP land is they don't understand that, like, for example, with the dreads in non-NPC 00, nobody wants to park in a ship that they can't get out of. They can't log in and dock and grab the rewards. They can't do anything. Once they're safe logged in that ship, ready to do a dread bomb in a day or two, that may never happen. There's no one willing to dedicate that much effort anymore. In the past, when things were smaller and groups were smaller, and there was a more like intel base where you're like, okay, this little 10-man gang is going to do something. We're going to go hunt that 10-man group.
It's almost like 10 Dreads logged off a couple of years ago is a lot scarier than 10 Dreads logged off now.
Right. You're not. There's the amount of effort you have to put in to get 100 Dreads logged off safely to set up a good trap just isn't worth it anymore. And CCP is not realizing that. They're still thinking, oh, this is the game 10 years ago where a guy would solo in a Titan and then have to be protected. I mean, they even made a comment that really got a few people pissed off in the land of FCs, where they said people use Titans and Supers without subcaps. They act like it's 2010 again, where you had Blap Titans and Aeon Balls. They don't. It's like this disconnect where they don't realize you have to have 5 or 6 subcap fleets to keep those Titans safe. Otherwise, those Titans, excuse me, are getting dread bombed. Especially when you're close to low sec, right? Like they just don't see it.
Gosh, not really.
You know, the thing about all this, and I want to wrap this up because even though I guess we could argue for a lot, but I'm going to go get some breakfast, I guess, was this. I have this weird suspicion that people, like we were talking about the Hilmar and the Falcon thing, we're talking about Areve, we're talking about the lack of understanding of the actual interests of the nullsec blocks, what they really do, what they like fighting, what they don't like fighting. We saw this kind of with the Drifter thing. We're also seeing part of it with the Blackout thing. I think that we could literally just tell everybody outside of nullsec that we're all miserable and everything has been destroyed and we've lost all of our shit and, you know, it's the end of the world, and basically just say that we're all really unhappy with everything, or that our empires have been decimated by the Drifters. And you could probably convince huge chunks of the player base and the company at this point that that's true, because I think they just don't really know, and they don't have a mechanism of knowing, and they're not interested in knowing what's really the ground truth of nullsec, right? Like we say FozzieSoft sucks. We've said there's a lack of conflict drivers. We've said the same shit for years collectively through a whole bunch of different nullsec leaders, not just Imperium Viewpoint. And instead it's like, ooh, let's turn local off. That'll change things. Or, ooh, let's like break up the blocks by doing things that'll make the blocks stronger. So it might just be easier and better for the game if we just say, hey guys, you totally beat us. We're all killing each other. It's all miserable. It's like really wild and crazy out here. And they probably buy it because they have no fucking idea what's actually happening in the ground.
Like have these fake fights and bamboozling each other, just
like, I'm really mad at you about stuff. I'm really upset about the Blackout. It's ruined everything for our people. You did it. You've destroyed the Imperium. And we could convince people probably that the Imperium is over and done because they're fucking...
Have a random nullsec region where we have a ranged fights just to give...
Like before this recently thing, have they ever quoted DAU?
No. That's what I said at the start. Like it's a metric that they've never had before publicly, and now they're just like, well, the MAU says the Blackout is the best thing that's ever happened to even the month of July.
But they also did it at the same time as those promotions. I was just thinking, how many skill farm accounts? Like in my corporation, we have at least like 2,000 accounts that all they do is just farm skill injectors. So if you can log in and get 100,000 skill points in a week, then of course you're going to see a massive spike of like 20,000, 30,000 accounts log in. That's going to be sweet for your statistics. But I don't get it being sustainable.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't bring this up before, and we got to go here. I don't have to pay for EVE. You know, I don't have to spend $200 a month to keep all my accounts subbed because I use skill injected, right? I break down my characters, make skill injectors, and then sell them, right? Like the skill farms on my own mains, right? And at this moment, I'm about 3 bill negative between 10 accounts. That's how much money I'm bleeding every month. 3 bills is a lot of money after all of this, instead of say 25 billion. But with this like daily login thing, I'm actually making money off skill farms. And it's actually great for me because now I don't have to spend any money to play the game. Period. Like not at all. It's all positive instead of negative ISK flow. So for someone who does the game for free by just doing skill injectors, this daily login thing is great for them. It makes them want to play, right? They're going to have a lot of fun. Whereas, the person that's actually paid money, right? Oh man, maybe. I only have to do it 10, so these login things are great for me, but I could see where people wouldn't like them. I like them; they're nice.
I'd like for them to, if they're going to quote statistics and numbers in the future, to actually release them, like we kind of got to do with the bot bans. They didn't give a number, but they gave a percentage. But it's just quoting some random number that they just won't release because it's it's my IP or whatever. Then they should just stick to what we can actually see because people can't tell, right? Everyone in EVE loves numbers. That's why the MER is so popular. Yeah. Every month they get to see what their alliance did or how the game's doing. But you can't tell that if they're just quoting some random wizard number that they just made up in the beginning of this interview.
I think someone
it makes
said
you wonder. It makes you wonder with the MAU, DAU stuff. Like when you see a communication from a CEO, and a lot of times people would criticize Hilmar's like last day. So back in the day at FanFest, like there would be the EVE keynote, and then there would be the CCP keynote. And a lot of times the CCP keynote would be full of stuff that the people that were at FanFest didn't really care about. It would be like promotions with NVIDIA or random ass stuff as sort of a hodgepodge with no real relevance to the people that were there in the audience. Well, it's because it wasn't aimed at the people in the audience. It was aimed at shareholders and other industry competitors, and it's sort of aimed in that way. And so if we saw Hilmar talking to, VentureBeat and using things like MAU and DAU in that context, it would make sense because that would be aimed at a business communication. One of the things that's weird and sort of sent me off into lawyer land over here trying to find out details of the performance thing from the contract is that it's unusual to see Talking Stations is a player-aimed thing, and then there's the MAU, DAU stuff coming into that when it would normally be aimed at a business audience, and I just don't know what's going on there. And so it's just something a little weird about that.
Elo said it best, and this was said on Reddit, is why not include all these numbers that they're using as talking points in the MER every month? If they're already going to show all that data anyways, why not show, hey, this is how many people were logged in, these are the time zones, and give out that data. Why not do it?
If they're so proud of it, you think they'd show you.
Right.
But yeah, I think if...
The problem we had with the Talking Stations podcast is that there was no counter to anything they said. It was a circle jerk. It was an echo chamber of, oh my god, CCP Hilmar's here. Yeah, that's why they didn't do it live. Exactly. Because they're scared that someone would call them out.
So okay. Well, anyway, but that aside, just on the blackout, like one final point, do you think that they'll take a view on how long, or if they're, whether it'll be indefinite or not, after they see what happens to the next day? And if they like what they're seeing, they'll go it a bit longer, they'll do one more month, and then
mine a lot, so nothing changes and they remove it.
I mean, it's hard to say. Like, we would like to think, and I don't know whether this is the case or not, that CCP has internal metrics that they're not publishing, that maybe they think that over time the internal numbers will come up. Maybe the internal numbers are good. I think that if we had better numbers than the DAU and the MAU, they would be talking about it and doing victory laps, because that's what you do when you have a success. I think that the interesting metric that I would like to see, that the players don't have access to, hopefully the company does, they haven't said anything about it, is essentially charting the average amount of time played for people who are logging into the game, and is the average time per session up or down after blackout, because that would be like a pretty decent metric of engagement increasing or decreasing. And I don't think we've really seen that yet, but I think that would give us a real indication.
Could you call it a time per session or a TPS
That's
report?
Not something they'll ever share with us. They can show the active, like the MAU and whatnot, DAU with us.
But the amount of time played, like even if it's kept internally, I think that's going to be the decision point for a lot of these things at the blackout, is if they see players playing more, then hopefully they're making a data-driven, evidence-based decision. And if I personally feel like this or that is good or bad, my feelings don't matter. What matters is the data and the evidence. But they didn't really do much data-driven decision-making when they priced monocles at $70 ago. They just said, fuck it, let's do it live, and nearly blew up their entire goddamn game. So my confidence level... the echo chamber thing. One of the really funniest bits that I think was one of the things that made me turn off the podcast was when Hilmar called it a purple donut, there's a purple donut out there by mistake. And Hilmar actually meant to say blue donut, and then corrected himself and said like blue donut or something or other. And then it went off on, Matterall went off on this whole thing about how Hilmar was actually like super smart for calling it a purple donut, and nobody's ever done it before, and that's so great. And that was a little cringeworthy.
Why was it purple? Because we all get in the same fleet.
I don't fucking know, man. It was a bit of Jesuit style casuistry as far as I can tell. So, but I think that's in the TIS clip.
But there was also no game developers in that thing. They had the CEO, the community manager, and the brand manager in the thing to talk about the future of EVE in a closed session.
Yeah.
Wait, we both banned him at the same time. I was trying to ban him and then you banned him. Third time's a charm.
They don't want to release a roadmap because they think it's too easy to game and stuff. But everyone was a lot more confident in the development of Eve when there was a roadmap under whoever the fuck else.
That's one of the things. Yeah, like with the panic. So like here's an example of like a weird communication disconnect. And something that's been like kind of sticking in my mind for a while is that like, you know, Nullsec and the player base as a whole, like when they introduced FozzieSov and it sucked and we called it FozzieSov and we said why it sucked and it shouldn't be there or it should be adjusted to suck less. I don't ever remember anybody asking for a fucking panic module. I don't know anybody that was ever saying, man, you know, Rorquals, let's give them invulnerability for a period of time because reasons, right? Like there was never... Like, there's a lot of the shit that's been sort of thrown into the game when there's things that are obviously needing fixes. Like, for God's sakes, iterate on the ship balance. Like, do something about the balance between subcaps and supercaps and capitals such that we have more dread fights and such that subcaps matter. There's all the shit that NPC nullsec, you know, but here's a fucking panic module. We didn't want, you know, what?
The best change like that, too, was when they went from 10-minute siege to 5-minute siege, because that would promote fights. No, 10-minute siege to 5-minute siege meant you could get in there, reinforce something really quick, and get the hell out as fast as possible. Then their solution to that was, well, instead of having 5-minute siege and going back to 10 minutes, let's just add a damage cap. Right? So it doesn't... it's very confusing. But here's the thing. You say Malpai is a great region. Then why is it that only 2 constellations out of the entire region are even getting used right now? There is literally 3/4 of that region that aren't getting used.
They just moved in. It takes months to set up. Okay. It takes months to set.
I'm not talking about NC.pl. No, I'm talking about bot. Bot's been there for years.
Bot is NC.pl.
Well,
renters don't do infrastructure. Like they don't set up things. They don't have umbrellas. Renters are like the hunter gatherers of Eve. They're not putting down farms and fields and buildings.
I know.
It also makes sense for them to only live in the constellations that are in range of Horde because, you know, well, everyone living within each other's jump range is probably
one of the strangest.
Hops the regional game.
I'm available for hire, by the way, Headliner. If you need some like PvE FC, I'll come there. I can manage your boys.
One of the strangest things about all this is that a couple years down the line, it turns out that Gevlin Goblin was in fact right about something, and he was right a couple years ahead of the rest of Nullsec, and predicting things like how Citadel broker fees would radically change the economy. Like one of the reasons why Malpai is such a good region has nothing to do with its value as conflict drivers. Because here's another thing that's weird. Modern Eve, back in the day, if you went to war, you would target people's R64s to bait out their cap fleet. You'd then have cap fights over R64s that would have an escalation pathway and these awesome fucking dread bombs on each other. But now a lot of regional wealth comes from things that aren't conflict drivers, and they are much more distributed and thus harder to attack. And when I say that, like broker fees in general, how do you attack a broker fee? Like you can attack an entire region, I guess, but it's a very different from like an economy based upon broker fees and markets, and geographical construction for umbrellas is very different from take territory, get moons that shit out money, fight over moons that shit out money, move around so that you can have regions that have more stuff that you fight over. Now money has kind of been disconnected from fighting.
Maybe the future will be us fighting over space that has decent salvage.
Actually, I want to chuckle. I want to chuckle about this. You bring up bots being that, or not bot, bot as in like the renters. I think rental models will die with the blackout. I don't, because you're seeing an alliance that has 5,000 people have less than 80 people logged in every day, and they're just dead. You know, you have corp after corp you're seeing pass through HiSec. The most bot activity we're seeing is in Curse.
Dude, I mean, if the blackout kills renting as a system, I think renting is horrible for EVE Online. I think that would be great to see the end of renting. That's why we set up our renter organization, was to try to undermine the rental model of our enemies before we all got in the same trench together over the Drifter shit.
But
if blackout gets rid of renting, awesome.
Hey, here's an interesting thing, and I'm curious, maybe Headliner, you can comment on this before we call it a day here, because this is something I wanted to bring up at the end of the show, is Bot had this thing that Lady Scarlet pointed out during the war, the last war, 3 months ago, or 2 months ago, whenever that was, where she said, look, hey, bot, you guys don't ever want to join the Goon rental program because they don't let you own your own structures. You can't have your own Keep Stars or your Fortizars or your Sotios. We let you do that. We let you have your own. That was what makes us unique. Please rent from us. But just recently, she announced that all Fortizars, Keep Stars, and Sotios are being nationalized, handed over to NC and PanFam, and that if they don't like it, they'll get shot. What do you? I mean, is that like? I understand that's a good idea, but the question is why would they want to be in bot anymore if all the things that make bot different and usable is no longer there?
Well, I think that was that was a response. What she said was most likely a response to your attempt to, like Min said, undercut the bot, or I guess it was targeted mainly at bot, potentially WeRMT as well, right?
Yeah. All of the rental income siphon going into PanFam.
Yeah, so but there's been a change, right, in dynamics since that statement was made, and obviously now a material portion of our coalition lives within the space that was once just bot rentals, and that that's going to change from a free sort of decentralized free market of like rental per system to something that will hopefully gel into something which resembles a community within the regions that covers, right, across Malphite and maybe some of the other ones. So I think it's just a change in the dynamic of how it works, right, in anticipation of the fact that, yeah, if this blackout thing does continue, it's very unlikely that people will want to sort of privateer their own systems and fend for themselves, because they'll just get picked apart over time. And you can see that in other regions now. Look at Faith Abilis, and it's kind of dead, right? Because that's
something down onto this is something we've done recently is you can't really trust people to correctly fit their own citadel. So if they're all owned by one corp or person, it's a lot easier to manage fittings, ACLs, all that sort of stuff. Because people can't be trusted to fit their citadels correctly.
No, I agree.
Time them correctly, fuel them, all that sort of stuff.
I think it's the way that EVE's going to go, especially with Drifters, is that you're going to have all the real important key citadels under one centralized place. But it just feels like that was a thing that made bot different than all the other rental programs in EVE. And now that that's gone, it opens up where they're going to go. But again, I think I want to say botting, but renting, I think, is dead. I don't think it's going to survive, and that's a good thing. I don't like renting. I never have liked renting because it always views it as like the king and the serf, and I never like to view people that play a video game with me as someone beneath me. And that's all renting promotes, right? Is you have the guy that's like Bob used to call them. Bob used to have a name for them, and they weren't allies. They were called something else.
They were really more like the GBC were bitches or pets, depending upon Sir Molly's mood. But that was more of a feudal era in EVE. It was interesting because under the old GBC model, Bob was the leader of the coalition, but the vassals actually formed up fleets and fought with them. Their leadership was paying fees to Bob. And a lot of the line members in the GBC vassal states didn't realize that they were actually functionally renters that was mostly kept in the dark. But as a result, they would actually mobilize and fight with Bob. That was a sort of a different and weird tacky power dynamic.
Yeah.
Someone asked you for a World War II analogy about this?
I'm trying to think of one. I can't find one for this whole discussion. I've been trying to think of one the whole show, but
for what, rental stuff in particular?
No, the whole show, just in general.
Oh.
Well, boys and girls,
it's been an hour, almost 2 hours.
Let's call it. I do want to just point out to close, I do imagine that there's a huge proportion of the player base that still thinks that Nullsec lost all of its structures as a whole to the Drifters, because that's sort of like the information lag. And that's kind of the scenario we're dealing with here. So I want to thank all of our guests for coming, and it's been an entertaining, actually quite a good time. Time's flown by, an hour and 45 minutes, goddamn. Thanks a lot, guys. We will all get together, not necessarily all of us, but a lot of us will be getting together next week, same bad time, same bad channel.
Yeah, man, I gotta go do some gardening. I'm excited. All right, bye. Oh, hey, I started playing, before we go real quick, I started playing Warframe for the first time today. Never played it before.
Are you gonna go to your Rosebud boat?
But I tried Warframe today. It was very interesting. I need to get a sword, though, because I don't like the staff they gave me. It's really weird.
Yeah, join the Gooden Clan. It's good.
Yeah, Ganel said that I need to. So, all right, bye, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.